am very happy to welcome Neishaw Ali today. Hi, Neishaw.
Hello.
Neishaw is CEO of SPINVFX, who were established in 1987, so almost 40 years, which is amazing. So I'll stop talking and would love to pass the mic over to you to just tell us a bit about how you got into VFX and your wonderful journey.
Oh boy. Well, being at Spin for over 30 years, that's definitely a journey. Spin, as you mentioned, Haley, Spin opened its doors in 1987, October of 87, and I joined in 1988.
Oh,
So some days I do feel really old. And other days I feel like I'm a 20-year-old with a fire in the belly, ready to take on the world.
yes.
But yeah, so back then we were servicing the commercial market, and we had a software division called Side Effect Software. And at that
Ah,
time, they were developing Houdini. Yes.
interesting.
And we were going to be the production arm. And within a year, we both realized two different pipelines and business methodology. So Kim and Greg went off to create Houdini, and we stayed, in servicing the production arm. And I joined as an office manager back then. I didn't even know what the company could have been. I just knew it was an advertising. I was servicing the advertising agency. So over the years, I've learned everything. I've brought coffee to my general manager. I've produced, I've been the CFO, I've learned and built all the different divisions that we have today. And back in, was it 1997, 96, 97, when the internet came about? So for about, I would say, 15 years or so, we serve as a commercial market. And when the internet came about and our creative was being dwindled, and we weren't getting no one wanted to pay for the quality of the work in commercial production. I decided that I was going to branch the company into feature film. Well,
Ah.
that was a mega undertaking. And by then, over the course of the years, I've been producing our commercial production, and I was also the CFO at the time.
Wow.
So, and during that time, for those of us in commercial production, would appreciate a Henry. And a Henry is $1 million system that clients would pay, $875 an hour to come and watch us work. And that was the latest and greatest tool. So we transformed the company. I transformed the company by purchasing the Henry, gave us a competitive edge because we were the first in North America to do so. Couple of years later, we purchased an Inferno. We were the third in the world to purchase an Inferno, and hired one of our partners, Keith Adams. Later, became a partner to run the Inferno. So that gave us a competitive edge as well. And when the internet came about, I wanted us to stay true to our creative, because that's really our strength. Anyone can buy equipment, and it's about, what is that value that you cannot buy really unless you have that talent. So we branched into feature film. I couldn't have known how difficult that journey was going to be.
I bet.
And suffice to say, fast forward, 20 years later in the industry, 150 feature films and about 40 some odd television series. Here we are, holding our own
Yeah.
and privately owned. So, you know, mm, I mean, we can talk later about
Yeah.
the state of the industry, but I've got some scuff marks.
Yes, I'm sure.
But I always say that, you know, our sugar daddy or our investor is the bank, and the bank loves blue chip investment. So we have to be smart about our spending, and we have to plan ahead and, just, you know, the revenue and the bottom line, it always has to mesh at some point.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine it's
So,
yeah,
yes, I've been there throughout it all, held many positions, know all the software that we use, can debunk, anything that we need to because, I've been invested in it for so many years.
yeah, it's such an amazing journey. To be anywhere that long is, it's an achievement in itself, really. And, I imagine in the late 80s, it was even more sort of male dominated as well in the industry. But that aside,
Mhm.
um, just knowing that you needed to diversify and move the strategy for the business into film, that's quite a leap. And even today, we will talk about the current state of the market, but a lot of studios are looking at pivoting. Some are looking at really just honing in on one particular area. How was it a bit of a risk to make that decision? And how do you even go about that? If you was there a bit of crossover between the advertising and film clients or companies? That
That's
sort
a
of
great question, actually. So because we were doing 60 seconds commercial, short form as I call it, it was a huge risk. In order for us to do what we love, which is the creative, which is working on complex sequences and scenes, what was our choice, really? We
Mm,
had no choice, and in order to be relevant and to give the team, I'm a slave to the creative for our team because I want to bring work to them that they love and enjoy. Then the passion comes naturally.
yeah.
So for me, for the company, we really had no choice. We had to figure out, what are we going to do? And that's where we want to grow up into. So it was quite a challenge. And the thing that was challenging, it wasn't really building out the pipeline because we knew production short form, and obviously it's very different. And, so you would have, whereas in a commercial production, you may have 20 guys, you wouldn't have, you know, 30 compositors, you'd have one compositor or two compositor that could work on that commercial. But it's about scale. The
Mm,
pipeline was scaling up in long format. What was challenging was developing the relationships and the trust. That took years, decades to do.
yeah.
And I didn't know that because I thought naively back then, and that's why I say scuff marks, and you always want to please the client. So you want to, deliver above what they are looking for. And so you would always try to do your best, but sometimes it just doesn't. And you have to figure out how you deal with those things and what you learn from it going forward.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
was developing the trust and building that goodwill in the marketplace.
Yes. Yes. So, I would imagine back then as well, a lot of well, similar to today really, but lots of lunches and dinners and wining and dining. I just would love to have seen what the industry was like back then.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell you, commercial production, there was a lot of that. Like if you were working on a brand account and that brand was in studio, you'd have to have that brand's, whatever it is, products available and so forth. And that was a lot of whining and dining. But what I loved about long format, I, the realism of it, like everyone had a part to play. The dependency, we're all dependent on each other doing great job so that the end product everyone's happy with.
Mm.
There was, you know, there was whining and dining. The only whining and dining on long format comes from being on set till midnight or working long hours and you're eating together. And then when you do have an off day, you are damn glad to have that peaceful moment so you can recharge your energy to do that. So that's what I loved about it. I loved all the people that we were working it because it was not, in a commercial production, you're working on a 60-second commercial in a couple of months, it's over and done with. On feature and TV, you're working for a year or 2 years, or sometimes even 3, 4 years, depending on, the movie or show. So I love the camaraderie that's developed. And sometimes, so when it's good, it's great. And when it's not, you have to figure out how to make it good because, I mean, you're married for many, many months, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, it sounds like quite the journey, especially being in one place. It must give you a quite a unique perspective across those years as opposed to going from studio to studio. I was wondering your sort of, I don't know, first 5 years in the industry, what your thoughts were about the industry at first compared to maybe halfway through your career or to current day?
Oh, wow, Haley.
It's a big question, I know.
Not actually. I mean, it's so dramatic, my thoughts, because I was very young when I first started out, and I had little responsibility when I was an office manager. You know, all I had to do was show up, be there early, be the last person to leave, and do a great job, and just answer the day-to-day demands of everything. And whether it's bringing coffee, answering the phone, doing the accounting, bookkeeping, producing, creating lists, and doing all of that coordinate organizing. I had no other responsibility. I would go home and my time was my own when I was there. I
Hmm.
didn't worry about, are we going to be paid? Is that show going really well? That was in the first, 5 years of my development, right?
Mm.
I didn't worry about planning ahead to next year and creating a huge financial projection. Then later, probably a couple years, about 4 years into it, I started taking on more responsibility and having to do all of that. And that's when the sleep pattern changed.
Mm.
And I realized I have all these people that are depending on me, all these artists and who have their lives and and their families are depending on them. And I've got to now figure out how are we going to make it work. So that was when reality set in. So I've gone from wanting to do a great job for myself only to now having to think about, you know, how do I maintain a level of work that will service everyone? And during the next 5 years of my business life, all I thought about, and selfishly, I will say, was spin at that time. I didn't realize the impact of community then
Mm.
because I didn't have someone to tell me that, hey, you need to be in all, you need to care about the ecosystem because we didn't have that back then. And so the next 5 years, I had my head down in the sand thinking about spin, spin, spin. How do I do this? What do we do? Competitively, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized I'm doing so much and the impact is not as significant as I would have hoped. So that's when I began to learn there's a whole ecosystem that you need to be a part of. Because in our industry, people work with people they like. And in order for them to like you, they've got to know you. And there's a great big ecosystem. And you start off locally, but you have to branch out globally. You cannot have your head in the sand and just think that locally is okay because the pipeline that has been developed internationally should be highly respected in visual effects. It takes all of us to deliver what everyone sees on screen, whether you're in the theaters or you're streaming or special venues or wherever, all mediums. So I learned that probably 12 years into my work life, which was already too late. So I never want anyone to have that lag time because that's detrimental.
Mm.
That's when I started to see that impact by being out there, supporting and helping, caring about the community, working with all levels of government, working with association, working with other like-minded association globally. So yeah, it was totally a change in perspective. Fast forward to now, here I am, 30 years later, given all that I've seen, and I mean, SARS, COVID, you know, fluctuation in currency, all of those things. I mean, every year we're besieged by something, strikes, you name it. No, up until last year, we have never laid anyone off at Spin in all the years I've been at Spin. Last year was the first time, Haley. And I have to tell you, I felt like shit. I felt like ingenuous. I felt like these people that I know, but I held out for a year and things still didn't get better. And what do you do? Because we need to stay around. We need the core team in order to keep the business going so that we can be around to bring them back again. And because we're privately run, while we MBAs and all of that I may have, that doesn't really count in moments like this, right? Because it's about, the humanity of it and how do you deal with it?
Mm.
So on that front, I have to tell you what we did for the first year of this strike business. We kept, which was not a good business decision, but for me it is, and for us where we want to be, we kept all our heads of department, all the senior talent at Spin, and we kept them for that year, last year. Because why? It's all about the talent. It's about the synergy of the team. You can hire 150 people and put them in a room and think, yeah, you can get your project done. You can find those artists, but the synergy, the knowledge base that they've shared, the shorthand of and cutting each other slack, that is gold.
Mm.
And that's really the core of Spin's success over the years. And it's no one person, it's everyone working together.
Yeah.
So this year, I'm not gonna lie, I've I'm not at my best. I'm not at my best. I don't going into the new year, I had all the hope not, globally that the industry would have gotten better, would be more fruitful. It is coming back, but it's a slow crawl for many reasons. We all have our woes. So trying how to trying to, what is it? What is the new transformation that is happening that we now have to fit into in order to be relevant and stay the course so we can reap the benefits and bring any team back that we don't have currently working with us.
Mm. Mm.
So those are the stages that I have experienced in my career. It has
Yeah.
been
A lot.
wild.
Wild, wild to say the least. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I can imagine having that responsibility for so many people's lives, I'm sure is very stressful, would keep anyone up at night. I don't feel like any studios that I've spoken to have been able to avoid anything like that, unfortunately, and we're all desperately hoping that next year is going to be much better. I know that a lot of people were saying that about this year, But yes, we continue to hope because, like you said, anyone who works in this industry, we're first and foremost, we're so passionate about it. And when if you weren't in this industry before and then you somehow get into it, you want to stay in it because the people are so amazing and awesome and talented. And it's why World VFX Day exists because we need to showcase that a lot more. But I wanted to go back to the you mentioned collaboration and it being a very collaborative industry. And I've seen online that you've done a lot of things, a lot of different talks and things like that. So really kind of pulling the community together. How do you feel we are as an industry now with collaboration? And do you think it's important that we really strengthen that between studios, perhaps clients, definitely, to just make our industry a lot stronger for future, like sharing knowledge and ideas and just yeah,
Mm.
whatever we can.
Yeah, no. So there's a general malaise in our industry for those wonderful, our future generation that want to get in, but they're looking around, they're listening to what everyone is saying, and they're so afraid. So even more so now, Haley, globally, we all have to double down and bring back that optimism, that childlike wonder and love for craft and not feel that it's something we have to give up because of technology. And we have to debunk those kinds of theory and ground it in realism, right? So even more so, we all have to work together globally to not to protect our industry, but to grow it and to transform it so that the industry can do its greatest work with the latest tools. And if we don't do that, people are going to be uninspired. And because our industry is honestly one of the most creative that I have ever been fortunate to be a part of. And every day I am so grateful that I get to create as opposed to going and doing a 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is, that was for when I was maybe 16, right? But we have to bring back the enthusiasm for our industry. And most of all, I think we have to inspire the artists because they're losing their mojo because of this last couple of years. First, there was COVID, and now we have the remote workflow, and now this happens. So, yeah, everybody's spinning out. So we have to, I guess, suffice to say, even more so, I believe that we need to double down, and everyone needs to be participating.
Yeah, I agree. It's really difficult. So many people still out of work. Many I know that many have left the industry. Maybe they'll come back when it's a bit better, but there's definitely a lot of people that, they've been through so much and there's only so many times that you can kind of start again or move to a new country, that sort of thing. So it's yeah, sadly our industry just has so many ups and downs, but also I feel like we're not really built for success in a way. And there's lots of debates around this about our business model. And I think it's something that I asked you in our last talk, just in terms of cash flows being super tight. I mean, we've seen studios that have been doing amazing work close overnight because of a lack of cash flow. So what are your thoughts on that, on the business model? Were we set up to fail, and is it something that can be changed if anything is to be changed?
Yeah. Really don't think that we're set up to be fail, right? Like each company is run differently, and I can only speak on behalf of Spin. I think when the current trends right now and what the industry is faced with for visual effects vendors, this is beyond our control, right? It's not like a process we can fix, right? So our pipelines are solid and our people may be solid, but it all cascades down and we need the studios, meaning whether it's Amazon or Netflix, we need all of those guys to be healthy and producing new content so that it filters down to us. So everyone, they're going through transformation. Everyone's going through, and therefore we are going through transformation because of technology.
Mm.
And so we are faced with, how do we retrain our artists? So we have to innovate our pipeline to accommodate that. We have to retrain our artists, and we have to do work in order to pay them. So how do we do that? So today, all of that has just landed on our doorstep within the last couple of years. I mean,
Mm.
we're always in technology. We've been doing innovative things in technology for years, but now, but it was at a studio level. Now it's at, it's for the mass. And that is why there's all this, talk about it, and we have to be able to be aware of what's going on and what is good, what can we use it for productively. So
Yeah.
studios, given what has happened over the last, a couple of years, they are looking at what is their new box that they have to operate within. This was not like, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or even 3 years ago. They are now looking at what what do I do? Do I buy content and I already know exactly what I'm paying for? Or do I develop original content? I hope that they are developing original content. So they're operating within a box. And now that trickles down to us because they're making that decision for the longevity of their studio. So now we have to look at, where do we eke out efficiency to match that dollar? If it's, $100 for this, how can we deliver and not and be able to deliver within that pipe? So our biggest challenge as studios, how do we retrain our staff? But the even larger one is, how do we change people's mindset? The artist's mindset is very, very important to the success of our company, because if they are open to using the latest and greatest tool and willing to learn, because they can't only learn it during work hours. They've got to be able to immerse themselves when they go home as, hey, I need to upskill myself. So it's a combination. I think that people are generally, some are, there's a portion, I think, of our population that have been there, done that, and said, you know what, I've got a couple of more years in this industry. It's not worth me doing. Then there are those who are like, you know, they say, yeah, bring it on. I want to know, want to learn it. And then they're the graduates, right? They're the graduates that are coming in and saying, well, my traditional role is no longer available. What am I going to do? And nobody knows. No one knows where things are going to land. So there's confusion. There's so much noise. There's confusion. And it's no wonder an artist is completely confused about where his or her trajectory is going to be.
Mm.
So, but as a studio, we have to look at that. So what I've told our team, in order to be relevant, in order to be, for us to be, for Netflix or Amazon or Sony or whoever to hire us and bring their project to us, we have to show, we have to be innovative, we have to have a modern pipeline, and we have to use all the AI tools that's out there that is available to us, that can further the production so it reduces cost. But it's not only sometimes can reduces cost, but it can reduce a timeline. So we have to rethink what our pipeline is, and then we have to make responsible decisions and share that with the studio so they don't think that it costs $100 for this when it's $150.
Mm.
And that is the what we're going through right now. Like we are, you know, towards the tail end of modernizing our pipeline so that we are agnostic with whatever technology is out there that we deem that is safe for our artists to use. for all the great reasons that meaning proprietary and for originality. And so, but changing the mindset and getting people to want to do this on their own is a huge deal. It's a challenge. And
Mm.
um, there are many that want that, but there are some that don't.
I've been to a lot of conferences this year and a lot of AI talks, and a lot of people are already implementing AI into, say, their production workflows, etc. And we have a few talks about AI in different areas of the business today. But it does seem like the bottom line is nobody knows what's going to happen. And so we're in this very strange sort of almost like an eye of the storm where it's kind of flat a little bit, and there's a lot of turmoil going on around us, but no one really knows the outcome after this kind of hopefully levels out soon.
But honestly, Haley, I think all of that is going to change. And the technology, it's here, right? Like we can't avoid it. I mean, we're immersive in it, and everyone, a kid, a 15-year-old kid could probably be way better than maybe some artists who have spent decades in our industry. Why? Because he or she lives or breathes it, because that's what they love it, right? So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at as well. And I believe, in my opinion, that a VFX artist is way better positioned to become an AI artist. Simply why? Because they know the VFX pipeline, they already know what's achievable, and they have the eye. Like that's a shit you can't teach, right? You can't teach that. You have the eye. But if I'm coming from a technology background and I'm doing prompts, anyone can do prompts. But what do you get? The differences between the two, if you were to do a test, you'll see how different it is and the level of quality. Now, I'm not saying that they can't learn, but what they can't learn is the eye for quality work. And that to me is where I am telling my artists, don't be afraid. I mean, just use it to make you look good, make us look good, because why? It's another tool. And the purity of art. What is that? What is that really, right? The purity of art is what you've created. Before we used to have a tablet and we used to draw and we used to do this, but we were the ones doing it. Now, instead of a tablet, we can type. And it's not about the fastest typist. It's about the quality of the words that you're putting in to eke out that. And so it is still the artist and what they're seeing and what they want to change. So I think that I'm trying to tell our team, don't be hung up that you're not the one that's creating it. You are, but you are spending time beautifying the shot instead of worrying about that broken, AOV over there or that render that glitched and nobody didn't find it yet and all sorts of it. And real time. So iterations is where you can see your work and you can be the sole generator of your art form. So before you used to be part of a pipe. Now, instead of being a lighter only, you can have greatest satisfaction as a lighter and still, but you can have greatest satisfaction because you can create this from start to finish. How cool is that? And so I'm trying to show them this other way of thinking that instead of thinking that they're losing their job, they're actually gaining more. And what doesn't work in AI, we can then kick it out and navigate it in our traditional pipeline because why? They know what can be done. And then we kick it back in again to do some whatever finishing. So that is the kind of thing I think that has to happen so that it's a hybrid approach. You know, look, shooting a movie, I mean, I will, until the cows come home, advocate for that. Because to me, the tactile, how all of that is so important to telling a great story. And poignancy of the moment, the intimacy of the moments and all of that, that make you want to cry. You got to do that. You got to shoot it. You got to get into that, so I think all those things should happen. And then after, when we're generating, certain scenes, we use AI, but then we kick it back out to our traditional pipe to do the things that it can do and then pull it back in and so forth. And who knows, in a couple of years that may change. But today,
Hmm.
that's how we're working with it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to kind of touch on, as maybe a last question, your general outlook for the near future, either through conversations that you're having with clients or other studios or colleagues, etc. What's your, I know it's a very sort of finger in the air, sort of in the wind question, but generally, as you are now, what are your current hopes and thoughts for the future?
Well, I did consult my crystal ball. I did, and what it says, you know, cloudy, but there's a silver lining. And I'll tell you that I always love going to LA because when I go to LA, I feel as if I'm in the heart and soul of our industry. And I do feel energized by the conversations, even if they are not what I want to hear. And there are things that I know that studios are busy developing and deciding what they want to green light and so forth. And I think that we're going to see an uptick in January in terms of shows being greenlit. But what does that mean for us? It means it's going to be, you know, the second quarter of next year and and third and fourth before we can start to see the impact in our studios, because if something gets greenlit, if a show gets green or a movie gets greenlit in January, then they're prep, they shoot, and the turnover, you may start acid builds, second quarter, but then that's where it's going to happen. I am hopeful and I feel a high confidence level that this time next year we will be singing a different tune. And it's a more positive one is what I would say.
Yeah.
But we need to hold our own. We need to stay the course. You're going to make decisions that are unpopular, but you've got to do your best. And no company is smelling like roses right now, and we are no exception. We are no exception. But you know what? Whatever it is something. It's what we need to do in order to stay around. I've got 170 on staff, and I'm feeding those mouths and trying to all the time, every single day. So.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being so open and honest about everything. And yeah, hopefully you can come back then to World VFX Day next year and we can look back at this talk with distant memories and hopefully a lot more projects in the pipeline. So for now, thank you so, so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome, Haley. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.